Are we on?
I did hear somebody say, hold on.
I thought I heard that too. Sounds on to me. Okay, we're rolling. Welcome everybody to the Rye-Town Park Commission meeting of December 19th, 2023. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Whatever that was. Debbie, please call the roll.
Commissioner Klein?
Here.
Here in the ether, up there on the screen.
I know. Commissioner Hurd?
Did that go through?
Yes, we hear you very well. Commissioner Cohn?
Here.
Acting Commissioner Graduate Thomas? And her final meeting, Commissioner Lindsay Jackson?
Yes.
President Zuckerman?
Oh, I didn't hear my name. Yes, I'm here. May I have a motion to adopt the minutes of October 17th, 2023, and a second, please?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Do we have any public comment on non-agenda items?
Well, nothing's on Facebook.
Anybody from the audience? Hearing none, we'll move on. First resolution is to declare certain equipment as surplus, obsolete computer equipment. I think the resolution is explanatory. May I have a motion and a second?
I'll make the motion. Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, Debbie, please call the roll.
Commissioner Klein?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurd?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn?
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Graduate Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
President Zuckerman?
Yes. Resolution to award path and gravel parking roadway restoration to MTS. Debbie, do you want to just briefly explain this?
This is remaining repairs from the damage caused by Tropical Storm Ida. It's fully funded by the grant that we got from FEMA. We've just done the work.
That's why it says no pro-tunc.
We had a big storm on the way.
Motion and a second, please.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Klein?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurd?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn?
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Graduate Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
President Zuckerman?
Yes. Next item is a resolution authorizing a submission of a grant to the New York State Department of Transportation under the Transportation Alternatives Program, otherwise known as TAP. We've had some discussion internally about this and the scope of work. This is an 80% grant, 20% to be funded by the Rye-Town Park Commission, of which that amount is 60% funded by the town and 40% by the city, approximately, as Mayor Cohn likes to point out. This is to replace all of the sidewalks around the park. There are two resolutions. One is for a complete replacement at a total cost of $1.4 million plus, and the other is for, that would cover approximately 2,600 linear feet. and the other is for a total of $761,575 as an estimate for approximately 1,600 square feet. The 1,600 square feet is the amount that absolutely needs to be replaced. The other part of it is to replace the entire sidewalk. And Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, our discussion revolved around whether or not we should seek to replace all of the sidewalk at this time, since the grant is for 80%, or only that part that is absolutely necessary. And let me just say, it's not just a replacement of the sidewalk, it's the curbing, crosswalks, et cetera. So it's a complete job. So the mayor has advised me that his city council is supportive of the lesser project, and I have a slight disagreement with the mayor about that, but I will agree with him to go with the lesser project. Mayor?
Well, the lesser project does what we need to do, and what the engineer has told us that we need to do. And I'm of the view, and our council is of the view, that that's what we should do, and not spend more than we need to.
And we did just replace certain sections of the sidewalk, so this would be ripping that work up and replacing it.
No, I don't think we replaced it yet. We
We
didn't
did.
replace it.
What
I
did we
don't-
do last spring, right? Was it spring or fall where we replaced a section of the sidewalk that I walk on every day, Dearborn and Forest Avenue?
Oh,
Not
it's-
in 2023. We haven't done any sidewalk replacement. We were budgeted for it.
2022. Okay.
Yeah, we did about 10.
What's the lifespan of a sidewalk? I mean, that's certainly still in good shape, I guess, so to me. What's the word, life cycle, lifespan?
Anywhere from 15 to 20 years.
And how much sidewalk did we replace in 2022?
Just 100 feet.
100 feet of sidewalk, and that was at Forest and Dearborn.
Yes.
It's 100 square feet, not, or linear feet, square feet.
It's 100 square feet, 500 feet.
So that's 20.
500 feet?
Whatever 100 square feet is.
Well, it's 5 feet wide, so it's 20, so it's 20 linear feet.
By 100, so it's 500, yes.
Squares,
5 feet
the
wide.
squares are 5 by 5?
Yeah,
Okay, but it was 100 feet long.
it was 100 feet.
Okay. But,
Right.
and I appreciate the point, but the lesser job is 60%. That's what the engineer has said that we should do. We would be ripping up 40% of the sidewalk that doesn't need to be ripped up.
Right. I don't know what condition the rest of that is and when it would need to be replaced, but as I had said previously, I think we have agreement on submitting that application, and I'll be happy to. That would be Resolution 23-32, that total cost of $761,000 and change, and the local match is $152,315, which would mean $91,000 local match from the town and $61,000 local match from the city. So, I may have a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion.
Yeah, can I just ask a quick question before we get on, before we do this? Sorry, so I'm just thinking about this in the context of other capital projects, and I know the sidewalks, it sounds like there's some that are certainly in bad shape. Overall, it's not something I notice. I do notice it in other places when I'm walking, but I'm only walking usually a specific section of the sidewalk. I guess my question is, what was the impetus for this sort of coming up right now?
The impetus is that we also are aware that the condition of the sidewalk is very rough, and it has needed attention for a long time. We've just started to bite off pieces of it so that it's affordable for us. But we know that there's a much bigger job to be done that's necessary. And the Department of Transportation offering the TAP grant was a great opportunity to get the work done with 80% of it funded by other governments.
And this wouldn't go towards like a parking lot, or any kind of,
No.
we couldn't.
No, this is specifically to facilitate transport, pedestrian transportation.
Okay,
That's what the TAP grant is aimed at,
got it.
Yeah.
safe transportation.
We had projected putting approximately $10,000 to $12,000 in our budget every year.
Right, I thought.
And this
we
would-
remembered
To do little bits of it
Right.
because we couldn't afford to do this. When this came along, we thought it was a good opportunity to bite off the whole chunk, especially when the state would pay for 80%. And let me just be clear, this is a very competitive grant. There is a very good possibility we're not going to get this grant. So, Lindsay, you had something to say?
No, I was just actually looking at the pre-review comment form, which is attached. Have we addressed the concern stated by the New York State DOT in our application?
Methodically,
Okay.
Yeah. This went through the pre-review process where we submitted it to the Department of Transportation. They made comments, and those comments are, one of them was that we didn't have enough money in our estimate. They said the construction figure seemed to be low, and that cost was adjusted. They indicated that the contingency figure was low, and that was adjusted. So I don't know what the city's experience is or what Portchester's experience is, but we got a bridge grant through Bridge New York, and one of the comments that they gave us why we got the grant, it was a $4.5 million grant, is because we estimated enough. One of their fears is that the estimates are too low, and then when the bids come in, there's not enough grant money to cover the cost. So that's what their comments pointed to. That's why the estimate was increased from the early memo that was sent out about a month ago. So we have a motion and a second. Joan, do you have a comment?
I was just going to ask about the difference in linear feet. We're talking about 1,600 versus 26.
Yeah.
That's not a huge, I mean,
It's
it's
about
1,000.
it's
yeah,
1,000
little
linear
over-
feet.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So, but I'm just curious to know if the condition of the remaining sidewalk, aside from the 1,600, is such that it's going to need to be replaced soon or in the near future.
I don't know the answer to that question. I would say, based on the engineering report, it does not need to be replaced now. Whether it needs to be replaced in 2 years or 4 years, I couldn't say. And we don't know what the condition will be once they rip up part of the sidewalk, what happens with the rest of it. But that's unknown. But right now, we have the motion.
Our own engineer visited the sidewalk and came to the conclusion that 20% of the sidewalk needed replacement now. James Natarelli, working for the commission, came to the conclusion, applying rigorous criteria, that 60% should be replaced now.
That's correct.
So from the city's perspective, we're moving from a 20% assessment to a 60% assessment.
Well, now that I believe we're agreed, may we call the roll?
Ms. there a
Do we need a motion?
I thought we had a motion.
I don't know if we did.
Yeah, I
did.
think Josh.
Josh made it.
Josh,
Josh's motion, who's second?
I'll second.
Joan will second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Klein,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurd,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Acting Commissioner Graduate Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
President Zuckerman.
Yes. The next series of items is regarding our budget. Debbie, I think I will hand the floor to you to discuss the budget and what the assumptions are based on. Let me ask a quick question while you're getting your material. Does anybody have any intention on voting on the budget tonight?
I wonder if we could hold it one more meeting so that we could have some further conversations with our city manager.
I fully expected that you might say that, Mayor.
Yep.
So I believe Debbie has been discussing the budget with Greg Ussery,
That's true.
and I don't think I feel very confident. We have made every effort this year to get the budget ready to this point. We've had years when we have passed the budget, I think, in March or April even. So I think we're ahead of the game. We're trying to get on a completely calendar year basis, but I think we're well on our way, and we're basically set with the capital budget, I believe. And Debbie, I know, has worked with staff to cut the potential deficit down by a great deal from the original numbers that were presented a month or so ago. So let's see where we are. Okay? Debbie, floor is yours.
So you all have a copy of the budget. There are, for those in the audience, and we've got 2 printed copies out. If you'd like to grab one, you're welcome to it. Certainly, it's in the agenda. So the draft budget, when we prepared the budget, we took into account the many variables that impact the Rytown Park budget and our operations. Clearly, weather is at the top of that list. Inflation, the general economic conditions, the restaurant concessions performance, and is very strong. So that's certainly in our favor. This year's deficit is really a reflection, that's from 2023, of the weather patterns. All of you, I'm sure, remember the rainy weekends of this summer, and in fact, the rain of this summer. Rainy holidays also, or some of most of the holidays. Poor air quality shut us down from the northern wildfires, and certainly kept people away from the beach. We actually had to close a number of times when it was unsafe for staff or people to be out in that air. We had forced beach closures on several weeks due to unsafe bacteria levels attributed to heavy stormwater runoff, which again we've never had that in our memory. So those are all things that impacted last year. Looking ahead to 2024, our challenges certainly remain in terms of our labor costs. Those are not going down. Competition for our seasonal staff at that low level of compensation. Open water swim qualified lifeguards. What else can a skilled maintenance or an unskilled maintenance person do with their hours? And increasing costs of goods sold. So similar to 2023, the 2024 season will allow for 153 days of parking revenue, so that's the same, and 110 days of potential beach revenue. That is consistent as well. So we're projecting in this budget revenue of $101.63 million, which represents a 4.3% decrease over 2023. 1.69 million in expenditures, which is a decrease of about 0.5%, and a projected deficit of 53,000, basically 53,500, which is, I noticed that there's a typo in your draft, so in some of the narrative, that number appears as 63, but I'll make that change shortly. So in terms of revenue impacts that the commission, we recommend to start to look at, you asked at the last meeting, please can we find, really look hard at our rates and fees and see if we can find a place to make a recommendation for some kind of an increase to make up for what was a pretty ugly looking deficit budget. And we found two areas that we are offering for your consideration. The first is implementing a $10 administration fee for lifetime resident senior pass holders who currently pay nothing. They show up, they must present themselves in person with their previously held lifetime pass, and given that, our staff collect their information and update their pass, issue them a new one, all of that for free. What we'd like to recommend is that we charge.
Debbie, can you hold on one sec? Please explain, I know the commissioners are aware, why we have lifetime passes? When did it start, and who is eligible?
So this was a policy that was adopted during the Carvin administration, I believe, where they offered all senior citizens at that time, senior permit holders, a free lifetime pass. I don't know much more about the policy than that. We actually don't even have the list of who was issued a permit at that time. What we did have is a whole lot, we knew that it existed, and we had a whole lot of people showing up with their pass. So we have honored that policy. Since they were promised a lifetime free season passes, we have honored that. In order, what I mentioned before, they have to show up in person, is we have to know that that it's actually them and that they have a pass. And then we renew that pass. Does that answer your question? Any other questions about that?
But this is not, new people are not eligible for this program.
Correct. We have a senior resident permit rate, which is at the moment $40 for the entire season for unlimited use and parking of the facility, and a non-resident fee, which at the moment I can't remember off the top of my head. So we don't issue new free lifetime passes, but we do honor those that were issued.
And how many of these lifetime passes are out there? And do we think now that we've discovered all of them that exist? Or is there perhaps some
There
number?
could be others, but they would have to show up and produce their senior lifetime pass and prove it.
And we've been asking people to do that for how many years now?
As long as we've been doing this, so certainly since 2016.
And there is a number.
To clarify just this a little bit further,
Microphone.
my understanding is that lifetime passes, free lifetime passes were granted to any senior resident that, any resident that had a senior permit from 2009 or earlier. Okay, so to say somebody show up, they would have to show us, because we didn't have, records back then, we didn't have computerized records. So if somebody showed up to, this year and said, oh yeah, I had one, well, you're gonna have to show us, the physical card, because there's no other way for us to validate it or verify it. When we first discovered this, I think the first year that we went to the fully automated system, we gave out over 800. Last year, the number was 578. So that's 5 years ago. So in the 5 years, so they're slowly going away. There was a higher rate of disappearance, if you will, during COVID. People didn't, seniors didn't want to come out necessarily, but we're still pretty close to 600, so it's a big number.
Yeah.
And there's the cost of, of issuance, of printing, of purchasing and issuing the parking decals, and staffing the permit office in order to do this. It's a little bit more than we can bear right now.
So let me, before you, do you have more to say on this subject, Debbie?
Simply that we would estimate that at $10 a permit, we'll lose a few, so we figure we'll probably, if a fee is to be administered, we'll probably end up at somewhere around $5,700 additional revenue that we would not have expected ordinarily.
Comments from the commissioners on such a fee?
I do it. I think our financial condition warrants it. And Russ's explanation supports.
Yeah, I'm in favor. I mean, my view is even a little bit more stringent. As a senior myself, I think that I would even support eliminating those lifetime passes. Any senior who applies today has to pay the senior rate, which is very, very reasonable. I know that there would be a huge outcry, and I know that there's a feeling that some kind of a contract was made, but I don't know that there is such a contract because it was just given. And, I certainly think that the $10 administrative fee is warranted. Whether we go beyond that, we could think about that for the following year if necessary. I believe that my view is, and I've expressed this to Russ and Debbie, is that in the future, maybe those people who are 80 or over should get a free pass, and those from 65 to 79 should pay the regular rate. I don't know if you're willing to go that far at this particular time, but I could see that in the future. But for now, I certainly would support the $10 administrative fee.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to do the math, and I might have this wrong, but if this started in 2009, and they had to be seniors, right? So they had to be 65, so now they,
Back then, you only had to be 62.
oh, wow, okay.
We
I was gonna say, so they're close
raised
to 80.
We raised it.
Raise the age.
We raised the age, which was a hue and cry when we raised the
Oh,
age.
jeez. I guess if you are a senior and you want to go to the beach, you deserve to go to the beach.
Well, that's
So you're.
I don't know what that means.
I don't
Emily.
either.
I think it's something for us to discuss. It's not a decision that has to be made this evening.
Certainly
We're
to
not
cover the
passing-
administrative costs, I think it makes sense, yeah.
You know,
Like I said, these will, through attrition over time.
True.
microphone,
Which is great.
Lindsay, microphone.
We want that, but, through attrition over time,
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
the need will diminish.
those of us who are older will not be attending the beach as much in the future, but
Are you ready for idea number 2?
I don't know if we can handle idea number 2.
Is there consensus on idea number 1, which is
At
their
least for
support?
this year,
Okay.
I
Okay.
just put an idea in everybody's head for the future.
We
Okay.
didn't get Jason's view.
Jason,
I agree. I think this is a reasonable fee, and I'm fine with it.
Okay, so idea number 2 is to increase resident daily beach rates for weekdays from $5 a person to $6 a person, so $1, but raise it by $1. And on weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, from the current rate of $10 a person to $12 a person. And roughly, that we calculate that would earn us an additional $70,000, which enabled us to cut our budget deficit considerably down to a level where it is well within the set aside that both the town and the city put into their budgets for, should there be an operating deficit for the Wright Town Park Commission. So
Debbie,
that's,
the $55,000 deficit
yes,
encompasses both of those changes?
it does.
Okay.
It builds that in, yes.
So otherwise, we'd be talking about.
$120,000.
Right.
Well,
I mean, honestly, and this is personally, and I've told Gary and Debbie this, I hate the idea of increasing the park fees for the residents and, you know, especially the taxpayers who support the park and who are paying the fee to support the park. But with that being said, if this is necessary,
well, Joan, your feeling?
Well, yeah, I would agree with Lindsay. Ultimately, it falls on the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Right, so it is, but it's complicated, and until we come up with a better scheme, not sure what other options are available.
Well,
Well, we pushed all the buttons on the other options last year and the year before. We've raised fees on non-residents. Last year, we raised them by $5 a person. That was a considerable increase. We have certainly learned the elasticity of our pricing, because in, I believe it was 2018, we made a much bigger jump in daily rates. It really hurt the residents from Portchester. And there was a considerable drop in beach utilization. So we handle this carefully.
all right. I have a comment, but let me hear from the other commissioners.
Yeah, I guess I think I agree with what Lindsay said. As a general matter, I think, you know, I have not gotten my act together to get permits in recent years, and if for a family of five, then it's $60 to go to the beach for one day, which is a lot. But I guess it incentivizes you to buy a permit, which is, do you have that number? A family permit resident.
Yes, it's
265,
265, yeah, then
parking and beach.
parking and beach. I mean,
a resident family is $265. Parking and beach, unlimited.
I think that's a good deal.
so you
Right.
need to go 5 times to make it worth it.
Mayor, how do you feel?
As the rest of the commission does so far.
My feeling is, I mean, I will, if that's the feeling of the commission, I will go along with it. My own personal feeling, as I've said many times, I would like at some point the beach to be free, not parking, the beach to be free for all residents. That is a goal of mine. I don't know if we're gonna ever achieve it, but that is a goal. And I'd like to make that happen at some point, but if, you know, if the deficit is gonna be as large as it is, again, you know, Lindsay and Joan both said, you know, ultimately it falls on the taxpayer, so depends on whether it falls on the general taxpaying public in the form of the city and the town funding the deficit, or it falls on the park goer. And Russ has mentioned to me, one of my favorite words is elasticity of demand. If you raise the fees too high, the number of people will decrease. and you're not serving the public thereby. So we have to just keep that in mind. But right now, the budget is as it is with those two recommendations. And we can think about it and go forward. We have the resolutions on the agenda.
Should we ask Jason what he thinks?
I thought he did. We didn't get you, Jason? That's because
No,
your name is there, not
but
your
that-
face.
That's okay. I feel kind of the same. I think it's a question of, if you raise the fees too much, you're going to lose attendance. It's so difficult because last year, this past year was such a difficult year to gauge attendance on because of all the issues that we ran into, as Debbie described. I think, looking at previous years, if we have a lot of beautiful weekends, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think if it's, 65 degrees and a little rainy, people may, second guess whether they're going to go based on, a $2 difference. I don't know. But I agree with you, Gary, that it would be nice to, find a way to make this as cheap as possible for all the residents. But, given our budgetary constraints that we're having, this is a fee that we've been reticent to change, that we've delayed, and it may actually be the time, as much as that hurts to say, because I wouldn't want to do, it's tough to do that. But again, it does incentivize the annual pass, which is maybe what we want also. So, I'm certainly happy to go along with this and see how it affects things. Knowing that we may have to change this again if we find it detriments attendance too much.
Could I,
Go ahead.
no, could I just suggest, since, Commissioner Cohen had requested that we hold off on voting for the budget, could we use basically our social media platform? I mean, obviously, if you ask the question, or conduct a poll, everyone's gonna say they don't wanna pay more. But could you, elicit public comment that way and see how vociferous they are against it?
Well, they're going to be,
Measure how vociferous.
well, I think, Lindsay, if you ask the public, should we raise the fees for you to go to the park? They're going to say no.
Well, I would assume that, but I'm just wondering how passionate the, or how strong the argument is against. I'm just
Well-
trying to gauge sort of the public. I know obviously if you ask the question, people are gonna say, I don't wanna pay more, but I'm just wondering how strong the opposition will be.
Well, I think that the non-park goer would say, sure, raise the fees. I don't use the park. And besides, if you don't raise the fees, it's going to be affected, however small, in my tax bill because the city and the town will have to put that in their budget. Instead of $50,000 that we put in, we might have to put in $100,000. So that would affect all of the taxpayers. It comes down to the same question that they ask, for example, with the MTA, is the fares account for part of the cost of operating the subways and trains, but most of it comes from state and federal subsidies. So, we're in the same kind of boat in a different way, it's a much smaller way. Emily?
I have to go in 1 minute, so I just want to make one comment. I'm just looking at the budget. I'm looking at page 17. I know we can get into deeper discussion on this again at the next meeting, or between. If we look at the beach admission line, we were budgeted for 443,000 in revenue. The actual was 409, call it 410. So we were short $33,000, and this year we're budgeting 520,000. I mean, so our assumption is we have much better weather days by $110,000. It also is building in, I think, that's where we're seeing this additional $2.
We can really get hurt, in other
Yeah,
words.
that's my point, is just that this, so our budget is operating at a deficit at the outset, right? That's what we're anticipating is a $55,000 deficit, right?
That's right.
Okay, and that assumes that we hit this $520,000
Correct.
number, which is a really big number compared to till last year. So I guess, you know, I just wanna,
What page are you on?
I'm on page 17. Because that's the biggest, you know, there are a couple numbers that are concerning the concession income. Is that just barley?
Yes.
And the kayak folks?
No, the kayak's on their own line.
Oh, a rental income no, where are they? Rental income,
Recreation,
No.
rental income recreation.
rental income, okay, I see. They had 0 last year?
They had what?
If that's what they were, it says they were budgeted for 6,700 and they
Yes.
have 0?
They didn't have 0, they didn't pay us until December,
Oh,
so
okay,
it's
great.
not in there
Okay.
yet.
Got it.
But the number is like $3,500. They did very badly this year.
And-
And they suffered from, right, they were only open on the weekends.
Right,
And with all of the weather
Yeah.
impacts, they got just as hurt as we did.
and, yeah, well,
And the restaurant. I mean,
yeah,
we all suffered because of the weather.
okay, okay,
But I
good.
think your
My point, yeah.
Emily, is that we're anticipating making $190,000 more
Right.
this year than last year, but it's fair weather assumption.
Yep.
Correct.
And we come in with a deficit in any case,
Mhm.
taking into account this increase that we're considering.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I know that the park staff is doing everything they can to make it as pleasing an environment and a experience as possible. So,
The thing
Yeah.
is, you know,
there's only so much,
the thing is that parks cost money to run.
right?
All the parks cost money to run. The parks in the city of Rye, other parks in Crawford Park, parks in Portchester, they all have costs associated with them. Rye Town Park is one of the few parks that actually has income. We need to balance that. Parks serve the public. They're not designed to make money, and our goal is, I think, to at least minimize the loss. I think it's an exceptional year if we actually make money, because it's so weather dependent, as Mayor Cohn has pointed out. If every weekend is sunny and in the 80s, especially the holiday weekends, we're going to make money. And if every weekend is rainy and in the 60s, we're gonna lose a lot of money. So the question, you know, most summers are somewhere in between those two. Now we have to see where it is. We're providing a great service for the people. Everybody loves the park. You know, and, you know, these are tough decisions for us to make, and as officials, probably whatever decision we end up making will be criticized one way or another. But we do the best that we can.
Doesn't happen, Gary.
What doesn't happen, Josh?
We don't get criticized.
No.
Thank you, I'm sorry to leave early.
Before you go, just a comment on criticism
Yes,
from Aristotle.
okay. I quote him
If
all
you
the
don't,
time.
Drum roll.
if you don't want to be criticized, don't say anything, don't do anything, don't be anything. I leave you with that. Thanks, Emily.
Food for thought, and food for belly.
Yes, thank you very much, Russell, and our beekeeper for the honey.
I was
from
gonna
Rhinetown
raise
Park.
that up. I was gonna raise that up.
Sorry,
You stole our thunder.
preempting you. Good night, I'm sorry.
Okay, before,
Bye.
do we have any, we're not gonna pass resolutions regarding the fees and adopting the budget. So, that will be for next time. I hope you all read the
Do I-
management
is-
report.
I want to confirm what I believe I've just heard in terms of a consensus, is that the park commissioners do want to go with the daily fee increase, or do you want to wait a month and discuss it next month?
I think that we should leave it in the budget for now, as you have compiled the budget. We can change that. I think we might want to have informal discussion between now and the next meeting in case anybody has ideas or want to change anything. But where we are, as I say, nobody's happy raising fees. They're raising fees mostly on our residents, and we don't want to do that. But we have to make sure that the park is viable. I don't know anybody is suggesting cutting the maintenance staff or the lifeguards or the attendants, and we need all of those people in order to make the park as beautiful and as well-functioning as it is. And Russ touches on some of that in his management report. So I have nothing more. Does anybody else? I have nothing more on the agenda.
I'm certainly prepared to go on about the budget, but I certainly need not if you've heard enough for this evening.
Josh has to leave at 7. Emily is gone, and I think that we can hold that. I just want to say a couple of things. Number one, thank you, Russ. Everybody on TV, this is honey, and all the commissioners got a jar of honey from our beekeeper, our park director beekeeper, and the Friends of Rytown Park.
With a pun intended, I'm just the worker bee. It's all funded by the Friends of Rytown Park, and it's to their credit that
And we
they've
thank
supported
the
this
Friends,
project over
and
the years.
now we have, anybody from the Friends? We have two. Chris,
Taking on a lot of that responsibility, so.
you're going to be the assistant beekeeper?
Assistant to the assistant.
All right, Chris. And thank you. And another word, thank you to Lindsay Jackson, who's been our fellow commissioner for 8 years. 8 wonderful
Well,
years.
not that long, because Benny was here for a while.
I forgot you.
Yeah, I took over for Benny.
You took
so it
over
was-
for Benny. I forgot you.
It's been
you
about
came
3
into-
years.
You came into office with me.
Yes.
So I'm thinking you've been here. That's right. Benny Salanitro
Yeah.
was there and stayed, and you've been doing a wonderful job. So without further ado, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
By the way, is this my punishment for not being there? I don't get honey? Oh, they cut me off. They cut me off.
The answer is yes.